Hello, welcome. Thank you for joining us. My name is Perez Wine, and I'm really excited to see us all. We'll be beginning in about 10 minutes. I'm just waiting for one more person to join in. We are broadcasting this discussion to be live on YouTube. We probably could have some viewers there. We also, of course, shall have a recording, and which will also post on some of the other platforms. So thank you for joining us. Just to be patient a bit. In about 3 minutes, I think we'll be beginning right away. Let me confirm with our guest speaker. The other guest speaker is Miss Victoria. All right. I think as she comes through, we were talking about 10 minutes ago. I don't know, but she should have already been here. Thankful to all of us that joined in. So, like I said, we are broadcasting this discussion, and of course, as we probably could have seen in the flyer, today we are just speaking about financing. We just want to look at something more into how to actually make this work in Africa. And it's exciting. Before I go into our panelists, I'm seeing Professor Paul. Professor Paul, thank you for joining us. Professor Paul was supposed to speak to us on one of the webinars previously before, but I think he wasn't able to make it at that time because of the varying time zones. So yeah, I got just a notification that Victoria will be joining in. And yeah, we missed you a lot at that time. And yes, today we are speaking bio financing, and I think maybe at a later time in this discussion we can always link up and see how you chip in. But actually, I really missed your perspective at that time when we were discussing the bio piracy. I think it was more into how we protect research, especially with regards to bioeconomy. So we are going to begin. I think the agenda is quite clear. We'll just jump right in and look at what we have prepared. In the meantime, Olivia, I will ask you to really help me. I think what I can do actually is, yeah, co-host you. Yes. All right. Plus, of course, our people here. Yes. And then I'm going to ask our guest speakers to turn on their videos so that we have it pinned. I don't know if I'll be able to pin it. We can just pin it up and then, yes, Richard. Nice to see you again. We've been really talking. Yes, Doctor. Saying Dr. Ephraim. I think Dr. Ephraim we've met before. We just we've met before really because I used to work around where you work as well. But it's really exciting to see you here. So let's do this pin, and then I pin. And add the pin. All right. So when Victoria comes in, we'll be able to jump right in. But as a matter of time, I think this discussion it's really been long overdue. We've always wanted to discuss something around financing, especially now that our innovations really highly rely on the availability of this. And I think shortly before we had, at that time, when we had thought of bringing it on board, We then hosted an investor round here in Africa, and we then said, let's first look at her perspective of what she thinks of Africa. And she moved in very many countries in Eastern Africa and then also South Africa. And I think at that point, we got to understand what she thought from our perspective as an investor. And in this discussion, of course, some of those will be coming out through. But as a coalition, we are a forum of scientists, policymakers, media, industry, and we're trying to bring in more of these other investors, civil societies, and trying to get Africa as an interest point for investment and try to, paint, not just paint, but also show what's happening in Africa. And we are really we got some of these discussions. And like we mentioned, some of these discussions, but also our activities are hinged on policy development, convening and guiding stakeholder engagement, supporting research and development, but also marketing Africa. And this discussion is specifically speaking to opportunities, challenges, and things we can actually look to for the future in the bioeconomy. Without taking so much of our time, I've invited 3 guest speakers, and they are really experts in a way as we'll be looking at their profiles. I have met Richard through, I think, a youth kind of program through the International Advisory Council on Global Bioeconomy. And I liked, of course, we haven't really met physically, but through these exchanges, I really see a lot of interest he has had and a lot of passion, but also with the work he has done, as of course, we'll be looking at some of their background in terms of profiles. Dr. Ephraim is both a researcher, of course, and an educator. I think we'll get some time to catch up at that. And Victoria, I met Victoria in July here in Uganda. We had a conference, Synthetic Biology International Conference on Synthetic Biology and Biosecurity. It was hosted by Simba Africa. And it was really exciting. She actually spoke to us at that conference, and I liked her perspective of how she thought we could do that. But without taking so much time, as she comes along, let me just begin by saying that Richard is a motivated PhD candidate as a born of Venezuela, and he has a background on supply chain management, integrated natural resource management, and agricultural economics. I think you can see this is the economics we actually bringing to the table today. He's a bioeconomy ambassador of the International Advisory Council on Global Bioeconomy and an independent think tank, composed of high-level bioeconomy leaders and experts from all hemispheres, representing different backgrounds and expertise. His work focuses on interdependencies between technologies, people, and environment in the context of sustainable transformation towards a comprehensive and nature-based economy. And I think that's what we call the bioeconomy in simple terms. Like I said, Dr. Ephraim is a researcher in Uganda here, and he's also an instructor of plant physiology and biochemistry at Makerere University. His research interests are in bioprototyping for energy packaging and renewable energy products. Other interests are based crop-based phenotyping and physiology on crop nutraceuticals. Now, he's also, by the way, an author. I think you missed to mention that. I had a chance to look through the chapter you wrote in the, I think you probably have to bring that at one point, but I really want to appreciate you for accepting to be with us. When Victoria comes in, I have her profile ready. I think she will be coming in at a later time. So without taking so much of our time, I'd prepared a few questions for us. And like I said, I wanted us to... Yes. And I thought of when I was thinking about the discussion, I wondered what really can we look at, especially for the kind of life we have in Africa. Africa, we are really faced with most group. I mean, when you hear, at least on many occasions, there are several challenges here and there. And for me, I think otherwise, that when you look at bioeconomy, I think now here we don't talk about challenges, we talk about opportunities. And when we now come to speak to innovation, and I think most of the innovation we are really talking about here should be hinged on the resources we have so much enormously. Other than thinking about all the other generic things we can actually domesticate here, I think beginning with most of this biodiversity that we have back home could be a better way to start and foster development here. So without looking so far away, I just thought that having a webinar, but also having some of these outreach opportunities, but also speaking to people could be an opportunity for us to work. So I'm going to be, Victoria said she'll be joining us shortly, but when she comes in, of course, I'll request you to allow me to introduce her a bit. Maybe she will introduce herself, but I'm just going to begin with Ephraim. Ephraim, I think shortly before this discussion, we had been running a discussion, and I picked on two. I apologize. She's actually calling me. I need to. Yes. So I want to begin with you from this discussion. What could be, from your research background, but also as an educator, how have you seen this kind of work through research, through the training? How is it directly contributing to the development of the bioeconomy in Africa? Directly, of course, we really want to hope there is a direct link, but how do you see it as a researcher, but also as an educator?
Oh, yes. Thanks, Mwine, for the introduction. And yes, I'm an author on a bioeconomy way back in 2015, 2016. I was working with a group called the Siani group, the Swedish group, where we are trying to look at how we could develop an African bioeconomy, basically based on our crops and what we have been doing with them. And quite a number of experiences since that time that I have seen. And I can say that the sector has developed immensely, much as we are not yet there, but I think there are bigger strides that I've seen going forward. So going to your question, specifically, what have I observed? I've been working on bioplastics with quite a number of students, masters and PhDs, in trying to ensure that we have a better way of managing our environment, but also improve our crop-based bioeconomies. And one of the observations I've made is that through this kind of work, quite a number of industries have actually come up, borrowing a leaf or two from here and there from what we have published, but also looking at how best they can utilize waste. That is where most of the issues have been, and that is where most of the small-scale industries, small and medium enterprises are springing up. A good example is called Oribags. We have worked with Oribags in Uganda here. You know what Oribags does. So they are converting quite an amount of waste into packaging material. And once they do this, I think they are creating quite a number of jobs. Somebody started with his wife. Now they have quite a number of people they are working with, almost about 20 of them. So that already tells you that it's something that is moving forward. Then we worked also on biodiesel, and this was a very interesting sector. So working with biodiesel, where I just go and pick material from these women on the roads and convert it into diesel. And already, I mean, just picking it from there and buying it at a very small cost for somebody collecting it and making sure that he puts it in the right way and many other things was creating an environment that you could call an economy just based on the production of that biodiesel, which is basically from vegetable oil. But then the most recent one is we are working on packaging material for seedlings, tree seedlings. So bio-based packaging material for tree seedlings, and we've been working in Eastern Uganda. And we have raised quite an amount of interest among the tree seedling producers by cutting their costs from about $0.2 to around $0.05 per cost, because they are just reusing the material that they would have actually thrown away. And by doing that, already they are benefiting. So for example, if you use banana waste, it's a big deal around here. So there are quite a lot that is going on in Uganda at the moment, quite a lot that is going on in Kenya. I think we would have a Kenya perspective, but they have just banned the use of plastic-based packaging, and that has stimulated quite a number of things that are happening. Bioinnovate is sponsoring a project in Uganda, Rwanda, and Tanzania, and quite a number of things are happening there. We had a meeting recently, and you can imagine quite a number of things also happening there. So just as you asked, from our research work, we categorize these small-scale industries. Once you categorize them, you provide a ground for them to be able to exploit the innovations that are coming from universities and research centers and turn them into businesses. And these businesses actually take off because they feed on material that is already available within their environment, within their localities, and the cost of production somehow reduces, but also it is important that they're impacting the environment in that way. Maybe I could stop there for now. I think other people would have to put in their word. I will have more submissions later. Thank you.
Well spoken. Thank you so much, Doctor. It's really exciting. Of course, you don't even wonder why are we actually not speaking at an accelerated development, more like that robust development. For the case of Uganda, when we're having such innovations. Now, I want to jump to Richard. I really understand you have an understanding from our perspective, especially through Latin America. I mean, we're always regarded as this the global South, but looking at our young people, looking at our young researchers, how do you see them actually integrating into this research? How do you see them coming into this research, especially maybe picking on ideas? Before we speak on to how they actually get implemented, which actually now comes to the funding. But how do you think we could actually integrate into what Dr. Ephraim is saying? Because Dr. Ephraim really presents so many undergoing research here and there. But do you think as youth, there is a chance for us?
Thank you, Perez, and a good day to all. And first of all, thank you for making this platform possible, that we can share and make fruitful discussions. So yes, as you said, I'm originally from Venezuela, and of course, as being the global South, there is a very remarkable potential in these two continents in terms of the resource base. So, and biodiversity, for example, I now currently live in Germany for the past almost a decade. And one of the differences that I see is that, in the institute I work, there is a big focus on the conversion of natural resources. Yeah, a lot of technology is being developed, a lot of innovations. Yeah, so I think in Latin America and Africa, you have this very remarkable resource base, but there is still a lack on these kind of technological developments, and we still need more spillovers of these kind of innovations. And with respect to what Ephraim said, that he was talking about the relevance of the small enterprises for the bioeconomy. So I strongly believe this is very, very important. This kind of public-private partnerships, the government working together with small businesses, allowing them to perhaps some flexible regulations, or by providing funding. I think this is in the future a key alliance that we have to see. Also in Africa, I think that's really important. So in Germany, where I work, is the Leibniz Institute for Agricultural Engineering and Bioeconomy. It's located in Potsdam, a small city near to Berlin. And actually, where I work, most of the research is targeted towards fundamental research in terms of biochemistry, similar to what Ephraim was talking with, work with bioplastics or microbiome management, or the development of new machines, new drones, new sensors for plants. But we really see a lack on economic research. So trying to find what are the challenges that new businesses are facing, what are the bottlenecks. Because if you think about bioeconomies as a term, even it's very recent. We are trying to shift a total economic system, from fossil-based to bio-based. So these new businesses that try to rely only on renewable resources, they face a new type of challenges, different to what the previous businesses used to face. In terms of, for example, the lack of trust. People are maybe don't trust so much a bioplastic as a normal plastic made from oil, or a paper, or I don't know, in general. So there are a lot of things to be accomplished, and that's why spaces like this that go, across continents, just sharing experiences, I feel like are very useful. So thank you again. I think I'll stop for now,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
glad to.
Yes, Richard. I
Yeah.
really that's interesting. I think what you're actually bringing to the table is more what I've seen as a high level engagement, where they are taking some of these policymakers to advanced communities or economies to learn a thing and bring it back. But I think what Germany actually presents to you is really something different from what we look at here, and having some of that translated into some of these economies, the young economies is really quite important. Victoria is an expert. Victoria is an expert with business management. I'm going to, of course, invite her. Please don't run away, Victoria. I need to be sure you're sticking around, because you stay running off and coming back. But let's hope you stick here. That's why I'm pinning you here. Now, I understand you've really done a lot of financing, especially the business financing. And from what I at least had from you a while ago, you had all this kind of plan of how local communities. I think I want you to give us something more into what a local farmer. Before you came in, Ephraim was telling us most of how research is actually advancing this bioeconomy. And he mentioned so many opportunities that actually arrive out of that, especially pouring into small scale businesses. And now you, as an expert in that field, I would want to know, how do you think a layperson, someone, because what Richard speaks to is especially because I'm asking about like young researchers, these are land people. But how about indigenous communities? How do you think they get to tap into this? Before we look at how actually we get funding to them, but how do they tap into the kind of research you're talking about, the kind of innovation you're talking about, the kind of modern tech we actually bring into the tables through the bioeconomy? How can a local woman, actually young mother, tap into this? Are there avenues? Do you think there could be avenues defined for that? Especially for Nigeria, okay, in this case, especially where you worked. We could begin there.
Okay, so I mean,
but before you go, introduce yourself. I had promised them that you would say something a little bit about you.
Okay. My name is Victoria Matador. I work as a business development consultant. My focus is mainly on the agricultural space. I am into fundraising. I work with both the nano, micro, small, medium, and large enterprises, so that I can have a holistic view, about the ecosystem. Because when you work from one perspective, it gives you a very narrow view about what's going on in the ecosystem. I sit on several boards, advising them on how to raise funds, how to be financially included. And I also work as an adjunct lecturer with some universities, locally and internationally. Yes, I think that's a summary about myself. I think that works. Yes. Thank you. So, bioeconomy is still largely a new terminology. I'll tell you, is very, very new in Africa. Yes, in the EU since wave 2015, even as of 2017, they've already established a specific fund called the Horizon Fund for Bioeconomy, right? And this fund came into action in 2020. And it is important that we understand that as Africans, as Nigerians, I'll speak from the Nigerian perspective now, as Nigerians, that we have always had bioeconomy. We are just not using the term bioeconomy. Our everyday life mirror the use or recycling of natural materials to produce other materials. I'll give you an example. In Uganda, the bark of a tree is made into fabric, recycled. There's a specific tree that the red bark is native to the Ugandans. You can make the shoe out of it. You can make fabrics out of it. You can make a canvas used for painting out of it, right? And this is way, way, way before the terminology bioeconomy came into place. So Africans have been practicing bioeconomy to an extent, maybe not holistically, but to an extent, we've always had it. Now, instead of us focusing on the word bioeconomy and confusing the rural farmer, the rural uneducated woman in the villages in Africa, what we need to do is to make them understand that they have started doing these things. They've started using and recycling materials that are organic. However, we want to commercialize these processes and make it a means of earning substantial livelihood, improving their livelihood. We speak about that differentiates the West from Africa. Let us not underplay the role that we already partake or we already stand for in the ecosystem, in the global ecosystem. When you talk about organic, it's synonymous to Africa because we are still largely organic. We're still largely bio in nature. Water essence that is used for biofuel is largely in Africa. And that is an aspect of bioeconomy, right? So really, what are we talking about? Instead of using big words or compound words that confuses the rural woman, let us use the terms that are easy for them to interpret and champion them as advocates for bioeconomy because they are already practicing it. We then need to highlight what they are doing. So it's not like as if it's something new, it's something innovative. No, it isn't. It is what we already do as a people. It's our way of life. We cannot allow things to waste in Africa. So we find a way to use it. We find a way to recycle it. It is who we are. But then we should stop undermining what we bring to the table and begin to appreciate what we really have and prioritize it. And we'll see, we'll stand out in the global bioeconomy. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Victoria. I mean, I'm just so happy. I mean, what has brought us is already achieved. I mean, thank you so much. I really like listening from Victoria. And I think the panelists, other panelists and participants will agree with me that your approach to defining this is actually the best way for a layman. I agree because when you were beginning, I kind of was saying, what is she talking about? She's saying this is a new terminology. Here, in my head, I'm like, but we've been doing these things, and then you tell us actually it's actually us confusing, well, us, with all these new terminologies. It's really interesting. But I really like the commercialization bit of this process, and I think it's what we are trying to speak to here. And I want to invite Ephraim from what Victoria says. As a researcher, Dr. Ephraim is a researcher and an academician. He trains young students here at Makerere University. So from your experience, at what level do you think should, I want us now to shift onto the funding, but at what level do you think funding of the bioeconomy should come in? Could it be at a research level? Could it be at, for example, like Victoria says, we already have some of these initiatives in our communities. Before we discuss how this funding gets there, but at what level do you think, for you, from your experience, and I know you've worked with farmers whenever you're doing some of this work and rolling it out to communities, you directly worked with the ground, with the people on the ground. So at what level do you think we should speak of funding into the bioeconomy, at least for an African perspective or global South perspective?
Okay, thank you very much. I like the perspectives from Victoria, quite interesting.
Yeah.
When she was talking, I just realized that, for example, where I grew up from, I've been doing a bioeconomy anyway, but it's just that it has not been disruptive enough for it to go into an economy where people think they can earn money from it. And the other thing is that we have not yet repressed some of the products that come off the non-bioeconomy sectors. And to me, once we repress some of them, so if I can drive my car on biodiesel, bioethanol, I don't have to buy petrol that is coming from Saudi Arabia or wherever. I can use the local resources within my environment, and I can be able to run a life on that. Then to me, that is very satisfactory. And coming to your question now, at what level do we see this coming in? And I might say that quite of it is that we have not yet been innovative enough to transform our bioeconomies to where they are supposed to be. So that means we need funding that would actually catalyze the transfer of these technologies or these local-based technologies to where they are supposed to be. She gave a very good example of backgrowth. Mwine, right now you are putting on silk, or if not silk, you're putting on something else, okay? You're okay, something that is made from somewhere. Why are you not putting on backgrowth? So it is at that point that if we can fund a backgrowth production SME in Uganda, and it is going to produce growth enough for everybody, and it is sustainable enough that we will be actually talking of a self-driving bioeconomy within most of these countries. When you go to the farmers, talk about biopesticides, biostimulants, biofertilizers, bio. You find that we have not yet reached at a level where we have a biostimulant, for example, that is going to perform in a similar way as these other fertilizers that we see. So we still have deficits here and there, and those deficits can be solved by funding research into looking at how best we can improve these innovations so that they fit within the production cycle, they fit within the production rhythm of the countries that are dealing with them. But I want to talk to policy. I was a victim of policy. So I just went to the lab, worked on my bioplastic. It was super bioplastic. I need to replace the single plastics that we're using on the market. And guess what? Uganda just stands out and says, you know, we are passing a ban on bioplastics. We go do research. We have funding from Uganda National Council of Science and Technology. 3 months, 4 months down the road, the whole thing is overturned. The law is quashed. And they say, now you guys can continue producing your fossil-based plastics. Can we have a mechanism where countries commit to some of these things? So this is not entirely about funding, but this is priorities in terms of funding. And then the reason they gave is that we don't have enough evidence that actually you can sustain this based on the bioplastics. And the reason was there is no specific research. We don't know how this thing works and that kind of thing. So ideally, I'm saying, can somebody fund those policy studies that actually show the relevance of these things? And once you have done it, then we will be able to move towards that direction. Speaking again to Victoria, so my local woman or local man down there who is actually practicing a bioeconomy and is not even sure it is a bioeconomy, you really need to educate him towards making this sustainable enough. Otherwise, we just keep doing it the way we are doing it. And as long as it is not sustainable, then we will have other disruptive technologies that are not based on what we know as the bioeconomy coming in and usurping what would have been the best technology that we have within our environments or within our working spaces and the like. So ideally, are the people aware of this? It does. We don't have to use the buzzword bioeconomy, but do they understand that actually they can recycle green manure and they will get an output comparable to if they had to buy a fertilizer, a single superphosphate or an NPK? Do they understand that? Can they do composting? Can they do what? If we can do that, if we can fund that level, I think it will also be possible to move forward. Let me first stop there. I hope we'll have more discussion around that. Thank you.
Yeah, indeed. And here now you tell us that actually the funding into research could be speaking to improving some of these well, we could call them indigenous, because at least backlog has been around for a while. Now, Richard, I think now I'm going to even change the perspective with which I ask you these questions. You spoke about something about public-private partnerships. And I want you to speak to young people, especially from the community that you live in now, and looking back at where we are. With the question of funding, how easy do you think it is for them to even get there, to even get something to start up, or even run something in the bioeconomy, more of a bio-innovation? How easy, from looking at what you're living in now, where you are, going back to where we are? So how easy is it for a young professional, especially young bio-innovators, young researchers? But I want to speak to most of these entrepreneurial people that are just starting up things in the bioeconomy, whether as Victoria presented it, or as a small enterprise through research. How easy is it? But also, when you speak to public-private, what do you think? Who do you think should be funding this? Do you think the government should take this, or do you think there should be someone from the private sector? It could be a funder or investor somewhere. What do you think is the best option for that?
Yes, thank you, Perez. I would like to also comment on the very interesting perspectives from both Victoria and Ephraim, because they really mentioned some really key aspects. But let me first try to answer your question so I don't deviate so much. So with regards to you ask how difficult or how easy it is for young people to access this funding, and I think it's very hard. I think for young people, even though at least in the European Union there are so many funds available, really all type of different funding opportunities, but there is really a lack of knowledge on how to do it. It seems, even for me, I can talk from my personal experience, not from someone else. Sometimes, even though there is funding available, it seems like such a how would you call it, such a mission, such a mission to be able to access there, in terms of bureaucracy, transaction cost, the paperwork, the deadlines of the time. So even though there is a lot of funding perhaps available, it's not easy to access it. You have to go to a lot of steps, a lot of forms, and yeah, I think in this sense, to get funding for young people, we find that it is very, very important to make clusters. For example, in the way you do it in the European Union, there are a call, for example, for soil health. So there is a problem about soil. The soil is polluted, or it is too sandy, or lack nutrients. So the European Union gives, let's say, 10 million euros for different ideas. How do we have this problem? How can we solve this problem? And then people form consortiums. They form clusters of people where they discuss this, and they make a research proposal. And then at the end, the European Union receives several research proposals, and they decide to fund one or two or three. And that's how research and innovation grows, because it's not from one day to another. Yeah, it's really something, in my opinion, incremental. Okay, you can have radical innovations, yeah, but these are, I would say, not less common, to put it that way. Yes, about who should take the lead. I mean, who should take the lead in funding? I think governments, of course, yeah, but it's hard to talk in general, because the contexts are so different. Yeah, there are different needs. In Europe, for example, the needs that are in Europe are different than the needs that are in Latin America and in Africa. So yeah, in that sense, the focus of where the money is channeled is different. You also have the problem of, you have the so-called investors or business angels, who are persons who maybe have some capital and they want to invest in. But one key problem there is that bioeconomy businesses often offer long-term returns. Yeah, so it's not that I'm an investor and I would put 1 million euros and I will get it very fast. No, some characteristic of bioeconomy businesses is very long term. That's why we're talking about sustainability in general. So this is also tricky. Yeah, and I just want to just mention, because I really enjoyed Victoria speaking also, about I think that bioeconomy, we all been doing bioeconomy, and even the indigenous communities all around the world. But I think that bioeconomy, in sense, is like a vision, a whole vision of an economic system that relies only on renewable resources. So this word, it's useful for political reasons. We already have a lot of countries adopting bioeconomy strategies over the world, not only in Europe, but also in South America, Costa Rica, and so on. Yeah. So from the political point of view, I think having this term it can be useful. Yeah. But when you go to the farmers there in that level, there is really no need to confuse them with random words. So what Ephraim said was also very accurate. Like it's about creating this awareness, of exactly the example that he did. Does a fertilizer based on organic will give you the same yields as some chemical fertilizer or pesticides? Or so I think that's the key: education, training, awareness. Yeah, knowledge transfer, knowledge development. I think that's key in these early stages. Yeah. Okay.
Yes,
Stop there.
Richard. Yes, Richard. Thank you. I asked you that question intentional, especially the last one, the one of who should be funding. And I wanted to bring in Victoria right after. I mean, these are really interesting perspectives I'm looking at here. But Victoria, Ephraim mentioned something about policy. Yeah, of course, he went on to look at policy studies, to inform on what priorities we should be looking at, especially in modulation of these policies. But now, for you, speaking from your perspective, how is policy a direct link to resource mobilization, especially when you're looking to funding? What we are looking at, especially when even you began with the policies, especially for your case, when you look at Nigeria, for example. But draw me a direct link from policy to resource mobilization, to actually having the resources ready. I think this will speak both to the private, but also the public sectors, especially into the bioeconomy. You just need to look at policy, especially from your work as a business consultant. How does policy either ease the work or make it hard, or make it happen? How do you? Yeah.
Policy is a blessing and a curse at the same time. It's a sharp sword, right? From one perspective, it helps with the politics of
we are all doing bioeconomy. Renewable is the way to go. We are making efforts. We are mobilizing funds. So you hear words like, oh, carbon credits, and there are a lot of buzzwords going on to facilitate bioeconomy, right? To drive that narrative. But let us look at it from another perspective. If you remember vividly, in the time of COVID, not just in the time of COVID, in the time of the Ukraine war and Russia war, where gas supply was cut short, what happens? The conversation around the use of renewable energy naturally died down. It had a lower pace, right? The tone was more subtle because everybody had to start looking at coal. Everybody started looking at other things, right, that are not renewable. And they no longer mind carbon, the emission, the impacts, the environment. It was about survival at that point in time. Yes, policies drive inclusion. Policies can improve the buzzword bioeconomy and drives the funding, attracts more funding, can also drive sentiment, because it's more sentimental than.
Yeah, I think we lost Victoria, but she was actually trying to really build something so nice here, and she's saying that policies could drive the inclusion, they drive funding. I think this was about sentiment, but also attract more funding. Yeah, and I think I would agree. When I look at most, yes, Victoria, you're back. You were still saying something. Yes. We lost you. You actually having some bad network, but we decided to, because we are hearing what you're saying.
Oh, so sorry.
You can go ahead, please.
Okay, so instead of us making it a jamboree, a buzzword, then why don't we focus on local resource inclusion? Because when we do that, it is more of food sufficiency that we will be targeting, resource sufficiency that we'll be targeting, rather than targeting what makes us look good in the eyes of the world. It's more of what makes us look good, what keeps us going, what keeps our resources viable for us to earn in a sustainable way, right? And make our economy robust. That is what that's what our policies should be looking at. It should be more about how it includes us. Because if you remember, we used to cook with charcoal. We used to cook with from wood, and we do not fell wood to cook. We pick the dry branches that have fallen from the tree to make our fire, right? And policies came and said, oh no, it is not good. It is totally wrong
for the ecosystem. The smoke that comes out from the wood, pollutes the environment, and we automatically abandoned it. And we will continue to abandon it as Africans or rural people globally, because as rural people, we do not have the money to do our own research to prove that what we are doing is not wrong, or it does not really harm as much as those that have the money would say. So when the big multinationals want to drive or bring in new products into the economy globally, then they begin to lobby for policies and come up with very beautiful names, terminologies that attract people. Like when the buzzword agribusiness came into being. Agribusiness, we've always done agri as a business. We've always traded our commodity, right? But it became a buzzword because it sounded good to the earrings of people, and it made people feel good with themselves, like, oh, we've accomplished something, we're bringing something new, something innovative to the fore. So what I'm saying is policies should mirror the needs of the people. The people should drive the policy. That is what we need to make bioeconomy work for us as a people and drive our economy in a sustainable way that removes us from the bottom of the pyramid. Thank you.
Richard, jump in right away. Speak to me about policy. And I think her perspective is about local resource inclusion. But actually, let's make policies that speak to our needs, that speak to what we need, that speak to our development.
Yes.
What do you think?
Yes, thank you, Perez, for this chance to jump right away. So, just talking from the context of the European Union. So here we have the so-called Common Agricultural Policy. Yes, which is the overarching policy that has been governing agriculture in the 27 countries of the European Union. And this, since the development of the Common Agricultural Policy, there has been a lot of trial and error. Sometimes, for example, in Germany, it was very prominent, the biogas boom, around 2010, 2015, that we thought that biogas was gonna save the world in a sense, and a lot of money was put there, but it came the other way around because people started growing maize when they discovered that had the higher energy content. And then there was a problem of food versus fuel. People were burning maize, and this caused a huge problem. So I'm telling this as an example of how wrong can policies be on one side. On the other side, the problem we see in Europe is that these overarching policies usually do not adapt to local conditions. So that's what Victoria is touching upon. Yeah, so it's difficult to make one size fits all solutions. This doesn't exist, and we have to really learn. So that's why the point that Victoria is making, that policy should be tailored and adapted to specific needs, to specific resources, to specific capacities in the region, even, to specific demographics. So this is, of course, easier said than done from a transaction cost perspective, because it's, of course, easier to put one single law for the whole country of Uganda than trying to find, these tailored policies, which belongs to each region. But I think we are slowly moving. I think, mankind and science in general is a process, develops, sometimes slower, sometimes faster. But as Victoria said, at least showing this bioeconomy is an intention. It's an intention. How an intention where there are always, yeah. Yes, go ahead. I think I said what I wanted to say.
Who was I don't know who was actually coming in, but this was no. Anyway, I really get what you're saying, but Ephraim, I think it was one of the participants, but it's okay. So Ephraim, you've suffered, like you mentioned, at the hand of policies. Now, Victoria tells us this is what we need, and you also see what Richard is trying to say. To what extent are you agreeing with these argument lines, Dr. Frank?
I mean, I think I partly agree with both of them. I agree with Victoria, and I agree with Richard on the same subject. One thing I would want to add is that who is influencing this policy? I think it's something that we need to discuss in a more broader way, and then to see why some policies have to be influenced in that way. So, for example, why we have to have a policy that may not be able to work for us? And why is the policy being rushed through before anybody understands how it is going to be implemented? And some of these aspects actually do affect the way we conduct business. And you can imagine if the bioeconomy develops, those are some of the issues that will come up in future, or they will come up even not even in future. They will immediately start implementing some of these projects. So my take would be that if at all we need to do some of these things, let's have an informed point of view and see what do we need as a policy? Why do we need it? What are we trying to solve? Once we do that, then we can be able to move forward. Now, looking at also the localization of these policies, do we have enough capacity to be able to do some of the aspects that we are talking about? And capacity building around policy is one of the areas that has actually been neglected in almost everywhere. We seem to think that it is easy to make a policy. We seem to think that you sit somewhere and then a group of people that are actually not even allied to such a sector are going to do a policy. So much as we have an understanding of the bioeconomy, do we understand it to the level where we can actually make policies that will influence it in such a way that it will be sustainable, profitable, and it will make sense to the people that want to practice it? Or are we going to make policies that actually are counterproductive to what the bioeconomy is supposed to do, then only provide for alternatives rather than giving us exactly what we want? It is a question that we need to discuss. It is something that we need to look at. Then finally, the funding, the policies around funding. For most African countries, I don't think there is a Horizon 2020. There is something like that is funding the bioeconomy. Most of the funding we have is going into agriculture, but specifically they are not looking at sustainability. They are looking at just productivity, yield increases, and a few things here. Can we have some of those things included, and then we can be able to move on so that we can finance based on what has been researched on, what has been understood, and then the products of the financing will be seen wherever this goes. Yeah, thank you. Let me submit from there.
No, you're still going on. Now, next, one thing I want to, I'm hoping, of course, what I capture for me, I think as a host here, I'm looking at actually having a more deeper discussion into this, because at the end of the day, it is what is actually affecting almost whatever direction we are taking as a country or as a continent. So I think it is really, we can't really have enough time to do this. But of course, our time is also fast spent. But when Richard was submitting, he mentioned something about availability of a lot of funding opportunities, but there is always going to be that difficulty to access them. Now, you as a researcher, I understand really you've played around with so many applications here and there for grants or funding in that case. How do you think we could actually, how could we go around this? How can we solve this? How can we actually get to the funding? What is the easiest way to apply for the funding and actually get it? At least you have this big experience as a researcher. In your experience while applying for this, when you look at what Richard was submitting about it, Because in the end, as we are talking policy here, let's say we have attracted the investment, we have attracted the funding, and yet it's here, but then getting it is hard. What is the best solution from experience, Doctor?
Yeah, so I think the best solution would actually be consortia. Yeah, we prayed around to get funding for quite a while, trying to get funding to do our bioplastic research. So the university was willing to fund, but the monies involved would not actually move us to the market with what we wanted to do. And until when somebody came from a consortia from UK, so we had to team up with some university in the UK, and Andrew, we got some funding that would actually move us ahead. So one of the ways is to build partnerships, build collaborations, and work with people that are of like mind and are willing to move in that direction. So when you do that, it becomes a bit not easy, but you get some way of actually moving towards where you want to be. Then the other way is to look within our local means. So the university has been very supportive on our part in making sure that we move, and has given us seed funding for some of our projects. Yes, the monies can be small, but if you show cause to what you are doing, and especially if the training involves sustainable ways of doing things, sometimes you get that funding. So within locally, we can also get funding. It's just that we need to update our resources, tell people what we are doing, and encourage them to be there. Then the best way to do it is actually to have collaborations with the private sector. To me, this has worked. So one of the ways I was able to move my innovation out there was actually to look at the local innovators themselves, but also local businesses. Go there, talk to them and tell them this works. Can you invest in this? Can we work together? Can we move this to the next level? And once the monies they have come in, because they're already in business, then sometimes you are able to move this out there and it will make sense. So funding can be everywhere, but you need to be there. You need to convince people. You need to talk about it. If you don't, then the innovation dies.
Yes. Thank you so much, Doctor. I think, wow. I mean, I'm really liking this. Partnerships, collaboration. Victoria, I think as we conclude, I think we should be concluding in the next minute. I want to look at how these partnerships could actually stimulate investment at least now we need a business perspective here into the bioeconomy. How public-private partnerships stimulate investment in the bioeconomy. I mean, at what I don't know. I don't understand business really, but I want us to. I'm just keeping it raw. I want to break it down. But how can public-private partnerships stimulate investment in the bioeconomy? Okay, the organic thing, like you wanted to call it at the beginning.
Okay, so I'd say first, I want to dive a little bit into what Ephraim said before answering your question. So as researchers, there's always a disconnect between researchers and private organizations in Africa, specifically. If you go to the West, most of this research or researches are funded by private institutions that want to bring innovation into the ecosystem. And they then have the deep pockets to lobby so that policies can be formulated to suit their purpose. So for his bioplastic, if he had the bioplastic research and he saw it was innovative, his duty was to look for a big plastic organization and sell this innovation to them by partnering with them
that, oh, they will be the first in the ecosystem in the Ugandan markets to do this, to do that. And you already know that they all have their inner lobbyists that can lobby the government, because it's someone that lobbied the government against bioplastics. So you need to understand, as researchers, we also need to understand the politics behind the politics.
Yeah.
Right? So that's just to, throw lights on his struggles.
I mean, you already answered the question. I mean, but please proceed. It's
So
what I
for
was asking. Yeah.
public-private collaboration, I'd say that it is about the businesses that are seeking new products. We need to first identify them as a people, either in the academics or in leadership, government leadership, or even as advocates, right? Identify the business people who have industries and have deep pockets that are looking for new innovations and are willing to drive them, as long as we can show that there's a market for it and it is a sustainable innovation. Of course, example, bioplastic is a sustainable innovation. Then the back cloths, right, that is from Uganda is a sustainable innovation, because today, the likes of Nike, they're looking for alternative to plastic that is strong, alternative to animal skin that is easy to regenerate. And the back is easy. The Uganda, that red tree, I can't remember what the name of that tree is, because you keep cutting from it and it keeps regenerating itself. It's in itself a bio technology, a bio solution that Nike or Adidas and the rest can definitely tap into. So it is first understanding the need of the private sector as researchers, as politicians, as advocates, right? Then mirroring these solutions or these innovations to them. So it's easy for that collaboration to be established. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Victoria. Anyway, we are concluding. I think our next round will be last words. But Richard, I'm going to make your last words speak to something specific. I want you to speak to our young researchers, our youth. Where do you think they should look? Where do you think they should drive their innovations? Those fields that probably could get them the attention of the funding, those things that could give them a competitive advantage, especially looking at, I don't want to run off from what Victoria was saying, that we should actually look to the needs of us, but specifically for also in the meantime, what would actually easily get them to the funding, easily get them to give them that competitive advantage, those kinds of innovations, from at least at the status quo we are at now globally. Where do you think our young people should look to innovate? As you conclude, please.
Yes. Thank you, Perez. Again, I mean, I don't want to throw out there one like very biased view. We of course need engineers, but we cannot have a world full of engineers. We need everything. We need biologists, chemists, economists, everything is needed. I think in general is to be in these kind of events, to follow the discussions, to stay up to date with research developments. Now we are in an age where we have so much access to information from all sources. So just if you're interested to supporting the bioeconomy, to doing something that has impact for the society and for the environment, if you have this passion, just follow it and study what you think you will like and what you think you are good with, and just keep going. And yeah, just overall, I'm very happy for the invitation again, and to have listened to both Efrain's and Victoria's perspectives. I also take something from today, and Yeah, we learned that cooperation is the key, innovation is the driver. We learn how interdependent everything is becoming. We see the need of engaging the business partners, the policy, the researchers. So sectors that were previously kind of acting separately, they will become more and more united, you know, if we want to achieve kind of these global goals of bioeconomy. So thank you again and hope to see you.
Yes, thank you so much, Richard. Meanwhile, Professor Paul, if you really could say something small, I would really like it. So you can maybe let me know in the chat space as I get my last round. But I would really want to hear from you, especially just in general, briefly at a later time. But yes, Ephraim, Doctor, your last words.
Yes, Mwine, I think my last word is I will have to re-echo what Richard said. In a space in the bioeconomy, you just need skills to be there. You need everybody inclusive. I wish I could tell you my story of how we have been working on some of these things. I didn't know that I didn't know a lot of economics until when I had to hire an economist to help me with my bioplastic innovations. And I thought it was just about selling and taking stuff there and then you say, but it was, I was in for a shock. So basically we need everybody on board that can be on board. And once you have those people on board, then we should be able to move. And finally, we need to encourage our young people to innovatively think about solutions that fit within their localities. Ideally, we still depend on innovations that were born in 1940s, 1960s. And that is why we still teach the Archimedes principle as a very big principle. Yes, it is important, but why are we not having new things coming on board? I think let's encourage our young people to think twice about what we are as a generation and where we are going, because everything seems to be getting over and over and over. What are we going to do when almost everything is over? We need to still live. So ideally, we need to start now. And once we start now, some of these things will make sense in future and they will be there for generations to come. So I invite young people to join me. I'm getting old now. I'm about to get 40 and that is old enough. So once I get 40, I'll start being an old man. And as an old man, I want young people like you and others to come and join this struggle and move things ahead with new innovations, new thinking, and with collaborations, not small silos of engineers, biologists, and what, but big collaborations that make a difference. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Doctor. I've really loved this discussion. Victoria, please, your last words as we conclude.
Okay, so I'd say that bioeconomy is something we already practice, and we just need to collaborate to remain self-sufficient and commercialize it to improve our economy and our livelihood as people. And to finance this bioeconomy, we need each other to collaborate with each other. We are all important, and that is why we have an ecosystem. Let us not look down on the rural people who are also innovating in their own way to develop our bioeconomy. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. I'm really so excited. I don't think I've ever been this happy on a webinar, but this is the most interesting webinar I've had. And thank you so much, Richard. Thank you so much, Dr. Fred. Thank you so much, Victoria, our participants, those online on YouTube. Thank you so much, really, for joining us. And I think I now know what we have to discuss next without even telling me. Just look out for us on our platforms. We'll be, mobilizing another discussion. And by the way, these discussions actually usually we try to disseminate them as much as we can. Especially for Uganda here, we have at least direct partners through our leadership. I think also most of these these discussions, some of them have to get there. I'm really glad. I don't know if Dr. Professor really came through, but I think he's unable to talk. But I would have loved to hear from Professor Paul. He's really someone I wanted to hear from in a while. But I think in our coming episodes, we'll probably be hosting him. But let's continue this discussion and partnership.
Excuse me, Perez. Excuse me.
Yes, please.
Yeah, I think I came in late, but I'm going to request everyone to share their LinkedIn and their information in the chat so that people can get to know each other and connect and follow each other on LinkedIn so that we can grow this community. Thank you to everyone. So my name is Duncan Feside. I'm part of the Bioeconomy team. Apologies for this call in late. Yeah, before we get off.
Okay. I think they're already doing that. Yes. Thank you so much. I don't want to take so much of our time, but that is it. I would have loved for us to, I don't know if we can actually have a picture, just one last picture. Can we all turn on our videos? I think I can look at, let me see if I can unpin, remove pin, and then we kind of take a picture, remove pin. Yeah, just, I'm removing the pin. Yeah, we can just turn on our videos and Professor Paul, really, I would have loved to hear from Professor Paul. We could be saying bye, but this is our last time, at least for this month meeting here. But I was seeing you guys, I've already taken the picture. I'll be seeing you guys in next month. Thank you so much for coming. And to our live listeners on YouTube, please, it was really so nice to have you. And I'm so glad that we met. So we'll be in touch and see you in the next month. Bye.
Okay. No,
Thank you very much.
We are taking the picture.
We already did. You're posing. No, we already did.
Hey, you did it.
All right, bye.
Okay.